Hey guys, it's your girl Jan Jan, and I'm back today. You ever notice like how TikTok, like you ever notice like how TikTok you really sit down and start like therapy session like 11, 12 o'clock at night? Like, just scrolling and suddenly someone is talking about like inner child healing, abandonment wounds, anxiety attachments, and they're just like staring at the screen like, wait, is this about me? Like, are they talking about me? I don't know about you, but I have had so many incidences where I've said to myself, whoa, but these people are talking about me, right? So let's talk about it a little bit today because healing work is beautiful, healthy work is really powerful, self awareness is necessary. But sometimes we don't realize how deep this thing really goes. A lot of us grow up in homes where we weren't fully seen. Not, not always abused, not always neglected in the obvious ways, but like emotionally unseen. And I feel like I was one of those person. Um, I felt like, as a child, I had to carry a lot of weight on my own just because I was like, as a child, I was like very shy and reserved, and um, I had a hard time expressing myself. And so I would normally like most times just be by myself, and I just had to figure life out, especially like when you grow up, with like a single mom, and my mom has like 7 children, so it was with a little bit of chaotic at times. So since childhood, I've just see myself like as the strong one, the quiet one. Um, and my mom, like, having 7 kids, she was gone a lot just to make sure that we were fed and clothed. But we always felt love. I always felt love. But I didn't know how to like show up emotionally. And when as a child you don't feel seen or heard, something happened inside of you, so you start to learn how to survive instead of how to feel. um you learn like, don't cry too much. And I growing up, I always have it like in the back of my head, like, if you cry too much you'll be seen as weak, you have to be strong. Don't be too loud. Don't ask for too much, don't need too much. Just don't be too emotional. And that's just how I kind of grew up, right? And a lot of times we don't realize that um our childhood shape us into adults, and how we interact with people and the relationship we have with people. And it was honestly not until I went to therapy that I'm starting to realize this. And a lot of times we can say, oh well, there were other people who were the problem, but sometimes we really have to look in the mirror and say, you know what, um sometimes I am the problem too. There are things that I need to work on. So, growing up feeling unseen, unheard as a child, like you start develop abandonment issues. So, it just don't mean someone leave you physically. And I'm just sharing from my experience, right? It can mean somebody emotionally left, mentally, spiritually, and it can mean like you felt all alone even when people were in the house, because it was like I said, it was seven. my mom has 7 kids, so it was 7 of us. Plus, we had neighbors and, a whole community. I was active in church. I used to go to Sunday school. I used to sing on the choir. I used to go to youth fellowship. So, even though in the midst of all that, and there was always people around, I always felt unseen. I always felt unheard. And, and so when I grew up like that, like I did, you start to develop certain patterns in relationship. I honestly did not realize this. So I used to like over explain myself a lot. I used to like really panic, like when people pull away, I would do anything to like pull them back in, like real panic, like when people start to pull away. And this is not just like in romantic relationship, this was also in friendships too. And I used to like feel sick to my stomach, like when I text somebody and they don't text me, or when they call me back. And again, this is not just in romantic relationships, this is any kind of relationship, whether family, friend, anything. um I used to like accept the bare minimum breadcrumbs, because I was like, at least it is better than nothing. And I couldn't understand. I used to stay in situations where I know that I did not want to be in, situations where I know that was not good or healthy for me, but because leaving just feels worse, right, than suffering. So I didn't know that was anxiety. So that's affected a lot of my relationships growing up. And it honestly was not until recently that I really realized that I have to work on myself. I have to go back into therapy and I have to work on my anxiety, because anxiety in relationship, it's not about the person in front of you. So it's about the way how I get to understand that anxiety works. It's about the child in you saying, please don't leave me again. It's that little girl saying, and that's hard to admit, because like we say, sometimes I say, I'm just really passionate, or I just love too hard, or I just care too deeply. And yes, that may be true, but sometimes what we call love is fear. And I can look back in a lot of like my relationships, not just, again, it's not just romantic relationships, it's platonic, even with family. And what I have called love, I realize that's not love, that is just fear. Like I just fear being abandoned, I just fear not being chosen, I just fear not being enough. And it's being in therapy has really helped me to realize that this is something that started from childhood, that I didn't felt fully seen as a child. And when a lot of times when that happened, you start to chase visibility as an adult. So what that means is like you start performing for love, you start shrinking for love, you start over giving for love, you start tolerating disrespect, just to avoid being alone. And then you look up and realize you're exhausted. And I'll be like, oh my god, this is draining for me, because you've been working overtime just to keep people from leaving. And being in therapy has really helped me. I Like I said, I recently had to go back into therapy because I realized that this is something that I really need to work on very deeply. And I think being in therapy and really understanding like the root of my anxiety, the root of why I behave the way I behave. I think it's just like such I feel like a heavy weight